Riveting: American Women and Their Role in the Defense Industry During World War II. When the United States entered World War II in late 1941, there was an increased demand for war materials and a labor shortage when millions of men were drafted. Prompted by the government's propaganda, roughly 3 million women explored new opportunities by working in factories in defense jobs to produce the necessary materials for war. While working in these jobs, women encountered hardships, harassment, and prejudice, but also newfound ideas about their capabilities. War work and propaganda also sparked an exchange of ideas about women's role in society. Although women working during World War II may not have significantly changed the presence of women in the workforce for that generation, war work did change the lives of women who participated in it and helped the U.S. win the war. In the long term, it proved that women could succeed in industrial jobs and influence future women's movements.
Millions of women who have never before been employed in industry are now enlisted in the nation's labor forces. They are stepping in wherever they are needed to do a man's job. Women in general are not as strong as men, but with the right equipment adjusted to their capabilities, they can do just about the same work as men.
Before World War II, most American women didn't go to college, and only 20% were a part of the workforce. Several bills were passed from the late 1800s to the early 1900s, intended to limit factory hours and the abuse of women and children. Unfortunately, a side effect was that the bills created unequal pay and labor conditions, and the perception that men's work was more valuable than women's. When the Great Depression hit America in 1929 and jobs were scarce, women were further discouraged from working. By 1936, 82% of all Americans believed women with working husbands shouldn't take jobs. However, World War II, the labor shortage, and the need for war materials caused factories to recruit women. World War II led women to explore new opportunities in the workforce. Those who were already working got the opportunity to move to higher-paying defense plant jobs. In addition, over 6 million new women entered the workforce, driven by a feeling of patriotic duty, the need to make a living without a husband at home, and a barrage of government propaganda. Ruth Jones remembers what it felt like at the time and the effect that it had on her.
There was a lot of talk about doing your patriotic duty and everything, and I felt that was where I was.
Almost half of the women who entered the workforce took work in war defense plants. Through war work, women explored many new job opportunities, such as riveting, welding, and inspecting ammunition. While working in these new jobs, women encountered many hardships. The work was often detailed and repetitive or involving hard manual labor. It wasn't uncommon to work 10 hours a day, despite the difficulties finding childcare. Mary Todd Drullard, who worked in a Seattle shipyard as a welder, remembers, "Sparks would fly and burn through your brassiere. I have a lot of scars there. I'd be working on the decks in the awful cold and damp, and would often get electrical shocks because of the electric welding." Despite their significant contributions and effort, many women encountered prejudice and harassment in the workplace. They were heckled by the men and admonished for missing too much work in order to tend the home and family. It was also common for women to be paid less than men, working the same jobs, some of this justified by assigning women different titles. Despite the many challenges, women working in war jobs encountered a sense of independence, confidence, and pride in earning their own money. Interestingly, one young woman packing parachutes for the war effort was singled out as the prettiest woman war worker and photographed to document women's role in defense. Her modeling took off from there, and as she catapulted to stardom as a world-famous movie star, she dyed her hair blonde and changed her name to Marilyn Monroe. During World War II, U.S. citizens exchanged many new and often conflicting ideas about women and their role in society. Women were expected to maintain their femininity, yet the government needed women to work in order to fulfill production goals. This was addressed by mounting a propaganda campaign that glorified women's work.
Oh, definitely. The radio and TV were full of it, and they tried to show what was going on in different areas, and kind of highlighting the personnel, and so we felt rather proud.
An example of this propaganda is Norman Rockwell's iconic magazine cover depicting Rosie the Riveter, a fictional war worker. Rosie was pretty, loyal, hardworking, and patriotic. However, she also had a strong, masculine edge that gave women the power and encouragement to join the workforce in male-dominated roles. World War II also saw an exchange of gender roles, with women adopting characteristics usually associated with men, such as self-sufficiency and power. Columnist Max Lerner from the tabloid PM wrote, "There's a new type of tough girl emerging, although still in a minority. She can outdrink, outswear, and outswagger the men." Men were concerned that women working meant they would have to pick up the home responsibilities, so many did not support their wives in the workplace. The magazine, The Nation, published an article called America's Pampered Husbands that pushed for further exchange of gender roles. It said, "If a woman can learn to run a drill press, why can't a man learn to run a washing machine?" In the short term, women war workers provided the U.S. with vital support during World War II. America's total industry production doubled from 1939 to 1945, a direct result of women's contributions and a key to victory. Unfortunately, many women war workers quit or were fired when the war ended. The attitude was that women should go back to being housewives and give up their jobs in factories to returning soldiers. Despite this initial push out of the workforce, war work changed the lives of women who participated in it and showed them what they were capable of. Women were able to make their own money, learn new skills, and become more independent. Sally Harkins shares how war work influenced her mother.
For someone of that era, my mother had the, I'd say, opinion that she could do anything she wanted to do. It definitely gave her the knowledge that, and the confidence that if she wanted to do something, she could do it because of when she went through the war, she saved the money.
In the long term, World War II women workers changed the nation's perceptions of women and their abilities, proving that women are just as capable as men.
She felt a woman could do anything a man could do, and I think had this great desire to prove it.
Although women's participation in the workforce dipped just after World War II, it was never again as low as pre-war and grew steadily from that point onward. In addition, bans on married women working certain positions were overturned. The ideas about women introduced during the war influenced later women's movements. For example, when women were working in defense plants, attention was raised about equal pay, regardless of gender. In 1963, Congress passed the Equal Pay Act, mandating equal pay for both men and women. In 1964, the Civil Rights Act was passed, giving women legal protection in the workplace against discrimination, unequal pay, and sexual harassment. Although these acts did not immediately solidify equal pay, they did make progress. World War II was many women's first chance to contribute to society through industrial work. They explored new fields by entering the workforce, during which an exchange of ideas and norms took place. While working defense jobs in factories, they encountered hardships, harassment, and prejudice, but also independence and encouragement. This work opportunity not only helped the U.S. win the war, it influenced future women's movements and changed perceptions about women's capabilities. Though she started out as a simple propaganda figure, Rosie the Riveter grew to embody all the women who took on war work, as well as any feminist. She's become a national symbol of women's strength, skills, and independence. If you need more proof, just ask a real Rosie.
A body and a brain and duty, it's the same for anybody.
All the day long, whether rain or shine, she's a part of the assembly line. She's making history, working for victory. Rosie, the riveter, keeps a sharp lookout for sabotage. Sitting up there on the fuselage, that little frail can do more than a man can do. Rosie.